Welcome back to Passing Time with Craig. As always, I'm your host, Craig, and today I am joined by someone who has made an incredible documentary that I can't wait to talk about called Magic Hours. I'm joined by Levi. Hello, Levi.
Hey Craig, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Thank you for being here. I'm very excited to talk with you about this. But we're going to get into the documentary,
Yeah.
but I want to start off, the world of making movies and being creative. Do you always know you were going to be in the film industry?
I would say from like grade 11 on was kind of the period in my life where I fell in love with movies in like a really exciting and deeply passionate way. So from then on I was, basically set on that. I think before grade 11 maybe I thought maybe like sports broadcasting or something, but you're changing your career ideas pretty frequently at that age. But yeah, from 16 on up until current day, I've always just only really pictured my life in trying to be in the film industry, write and direct movies, and I'm still in the middle of just trying to make that work for me, basically. Yeah.
And so being on the behind the scenes, behind the cameras, there's a lot of creativity and you have to be open to ideas. Have you found that you just become very flexible with filming, that because you have this idea and vision and then maybe it doesn't really work out budget wise, time wise, whatever it is? You have to be pretty flexible, right?
Yeah, I mean that's a very easy segue into like also documentary filmmaking versus like narrative fiction. And so with this project, Magic Hours, it was my first documentary. So this is like coming off of a fresh experience for me, where it was definitely the most amount of like just go out with a camera and see what you capture basically, and talk to people and just kind of go with it a little bit more. And certainly in like narrative fiction, of course, you run into budget constraints or inspiration on the day or things don't work. So there is always a level of flexibility, but there's just inherently like a little less that you can prepare for doing doc work versus narrative work. And so that's like something that I really, really enjoyed about doing my first doc for sure, was just the level of spontaneity and discovery. Felt that kind of put my mind at ease versus thinking about something that you maybe been writing for a year or trying to get funding for and leading up to shooting, and you want it to be a certain way. And that can be really rewarding too if you feel like you're really close to it, but also stressful, and it can make you a little anxious. So anyways, yeah, it's a lot of fun. That part of creating is just discovering and kind of rolling with it and finding out exactly what type of story you're trying to tell as you go along.
So why did you decide it was time to move from narrative to making a documentary? Because you're still telling a story. You still have a beginning, middle, end. They've got all this stuff to it, but they're very different beasts. So what made you decide to do a documentary?
Honestly, just completely kind of had an opportunity come up and essentially land in my lap in a way. I just was approached by a filmmaker out of Edmonton. His name's Dylan Reese Howard, and he's a producer on this film. And essentially, he was contacted by CBC. They were looking for a documentary out of Calgary, and he contacted some of his filmmaker friends from here and just said, "Do you want to pitch anything?" And I was in the middle of trying to get like a narrative project off the ground, and I had just quit my job like 2 months previous, where I was at a production company full time, and I was looking to fill up the schedule. So I said, of course I'm gonna try to pitch something. And I just like kind of lied when he first said, "Hey, is there a documentary you've been wanting to make for a few years, or any burning ideas that you've been wanting to bring to life?" And the real answer was no, but I just like sat down for like an hour or two, obviously with certain constraints. I couldn't like pitch a volcano documentary with worldwide travel, but like something within Alberta that I could film, with a reasonable, modest budget. And I just thought like, hey, if I was going to make a documentary under those parameters, like what would I do? And then just like a week later, I was told like, cool, like go and make it. You have a year. And so that was it. I was not strategically trying to dip my toes into doc work or aspire to be a documentary filmmaker. It just like within 2 weeks went from something I never even really thought about ever doing to it. This was definitely one of those examples of something that kind of just presented itself to me versus me manifesting an opportunity or something like that. So yeah, it just happenstance in a way.
So I love movies, and I love going to the movies, and we're gonna probably chat a little bit later about the state of cinema and everything and theaters. But so I was very intrigued by this documentary, Magic Hours, and I was so excited to watch it, and I loved it. It was so good. Why did you choose that topic again? You weren't looking for a documentary, you weren't planning on anything, and you had this idea. Why did you focus on that? So for those of you people who don't know, it's a documentary about small theaters, movie theaters in Alberta.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a documentary kind of about the struggles and the plight of independent movie theaters, typically in small towns across Alberta. There is a little bit of Edmonton and Calgary in it, but really it's the heart of it is kind of that old historic, little movie theater when you drive through a place like Drumheller or Stettler or Strathmore, and you kind of see this, this antiquated, charming building on the street corner. And the movie is really about the people who are running these movie theaters, obviously being invested into a business that is facing really challenging times. And I just figured that there would be hopefully an interesting story there, especially about the people who are running these movie theaters. Going back to like kind of, even though again, like I was saying, it's not something that I've been thinking about for a year, I kind of just sat down and thought, what would I want to do a documentary on? This was like the first one I put in the email as like a little pitch to send to CBC. And I just think I was asking myself, like, what sorts of like lots of times when I think of ideas, whether it's narrative or anything creative, like a lot of ideas kind of their genesis for me is usually like an image that kind of won't leave my brain a little bit, or I find just lingers, doesn't matter how many years. And one of them has just always been the cute, like old movie theater in a small town. I think they're charming, but also some of them are in rough shape. Like I just was kind of fixated every time I went to shoot a short film or went for work to a small town that had a movie theater. I was always just curious about them. Yeah. So I just figured that basically like, let's do a documentary on them and see what it turns into. And I knew I didn't want, as much as I love like the buildings themselves, I knew that, to make hopefully the documentary not super boring, for lack of a better word, or to try to make like to grab people, but I didn't want it to be too much like built in 1922 by this architect and the floor beams were made of this type. Like I wanted it to be about the people, but still obviously do it as a tribute to the spaces themselves. But
you could on the whole total like HGTV documentary and like, let's go the history of this building. But and they look cool and you get to see them, and that's a great thing about visual media, where you could actually see it, so you don't need to really go into as much details or have somebody explain it, but it's about the people. So how long were you filming for?
So filming was spread out from about June 2023 to December 2023. So about 6 months. We took the approach of like, trying to just spread it out as much as we could that the budget would allow. So that I could kind of like let time pass, let the seasons change, and get to know people better over time, and just build that trust and that comfort level, and a little bit of see how I didn't see how the theater is doing within even that small window of time, which proved in the film to end up bringing about quite a bit of dramatic change for particularly one of the theaters featured. So yeah, like I was saying to our team early on, sometimes depending on the type of doc or type of movie, you could say, let's just line up a 10-day or a 12-day shooting block and like get a crew of 5 and rent a van and a U-Haul and throw in our gear and just go bang it out, line up interviews, drive around, talk to who you need to, and then you're done. But yeah, early on, I was kind of saying to Don and Dylan, the 2 other producers on the project with me, that I just really wanted to try to leave my house like once a week ish, you know, for 6 months, and go film something.
Well, and I loved it, and I want people to watch it, so I don't want to give away every single spoiler and everything, but you do have, it's very interesting because you're focused on a bunch of different theaters, and some are a little bit more like shorter time with them, others you get to see them more, and there is a story of one that was really struggling, and we're trying to see if they're going to be able to survive or not, and it's not necessarily a happy ending.
Yeah, it's not really a spoiler. Like it's like 15 minutes in, we kind of come right out and say or show that they don't make it, and then we wind the clock back and we kind of see, you know, when I was meeting them 6 months at the beginning. So it's not a spoiler.
Yeah, it's not some plot twist. This is not like a plot twist movie that, you know, we just ruined the experience for.
Sorry, everybody. No, and that's what I really liked about it, is that there are just these different storylines. Like all these theaters have the same basis of trying to survive post-pandemic, where streaming is a whole different game.
Yeah.
And movie theaters, the smaller ones, you know, they can only, you know, afford so many movies and they only have 1, maybe 2 screens. But then there's still all these different storylines of the people that's going on there. There's people who just bought the place. There's people who've had it run for decades. Like it's a very interesting on the people.
Yeah, and that was a huge focus too, was I also thought that it would help kind of present a fuller picture if there was a little bit of a tapestry of just, again, different people who are at different timelines in how their business is doing. So, you know, again, for those who are listening and haven't seen the documentary, and I'm trying to sell it, like there is one theater where, you know, we kind of focus on 3 in the documentary. One of them is down in the Crow's Nest Pass, and there's a group of people there trying to reopen a theater that's been closed for 20 years. So they're at the beginning of construction and trying to raise. When we found them, like for the documentary, they were already $1 million into fundraising, and they needed like another 1.7. So we kind of just followed along in the middle of this year-long, like multi-year-long project for them, and just got a glimpse into like kind of the optimism of this is going to work, and we're going to bring back this theater to the Crow's Nest Pass area, and we need it, and for various different reasons, not just movie going, but a place for concerts or choirs or even drama, you know, classes for kids, like all sorts of different things. Like a small town is going to usually try to multi-purpose their cinema if they can, and it can be run in a few different ways. And then there's a theater in Stettler, is one of the other main 3. That's again kind of that story of a business that's being, you know, the passion and heart and soul is being poured into it by you know, it's the family that owns it and the people who work there, but just kind of running into the reality of the difficulties with these theaters. No matter how much you give in 2024, it's just a business that is you know, tough going. And then a family down in High River that's owned a theater for 20 years, and they're getting up there in age and kind of encountering some health problems as they grow older, and kind of a story about family in a way there. So those are the 3, and I wanted, back to kind of what you were saying, sorry for the ramble, was like I wanted to present like just a bit of a different experience and kind of as much of the spectrum as I could fit in, because some theaters might be doing great, some theaters not so much. Of course, different types of people running them for different reasons, and I just thought it would help keep things fresh as you watch it if you jumped around a little bit and got, you know, to meet different people with different perspectives.
Yeah. No, and it's awesome. And I think even if people aren't big into like movie theaters, I think it's such a I think there's something for everybody, whether it is just the human aspect of it, or a small, like being a small business owner, or being a family run business. There's a lot of different things that come to play in your documentary, which I find very interesting how it all works out.
Yeah, thank you. That was definitely a focus that I, didn't want it to necessarily just be for movie nerds, and so one of the big compliments, I guess I'd say, is like we did a screening the week it launched on CBC Gem. So the movie was made and funded by the CBC for exclusive streaming on their streaming service, CBC Gem, where you can watch it now for free. But we also wanted to show it in theaters because that's always really rewarding as a filmmaker, regardless of the subject matter. But obviously, what this movie is about, it makes a lot of sense. So when we streamed it at the Globe, kind of as its premiere here in Calgary, of course, we had a lot of friends and family come out. And my brother's friend, I think, texted him afterwards and was like, honestly, like, didn't think it'd be a movie for me, like, it's about movie theaters. Like, probably I'll just go and, support my brother or my friend's brother. And he just is like, didn't think it'd be for me, and absolutely, like, loved it. Because, hopefully we just put in some universal stuff that's for everybody, and certainly movie nerds like myself or you, like, maybe we'll get a little bit more out of it. But yeah, I wanted my mom and dad to like it too.
Yeah.
I mean, and other people who aren't just thinking about old movie theaters.
Yeah. Well, and as movie nerds, like, I get frustrated with people who are like, oh, that's not my
type of movie.
Like, no, try it out, because you never know. Like, I mean, look at last year's Barbie. There's so many people who are like, I don't want to see. Oh God. But it was super friggin' funny and smart.
Yeah.
I just think that you got to try some movies out. I think it's the same. I always say this to people when it comes to like craft beer, working at the breweries. I'm like, there is a type of style of beer for every single person. So you may not like stouts, but there is a stout out there that if you try it, you're gonna crap, I actually like this, or sour, or IPA, all kinds of things. So I'm always like, just give it a try. And movies, there's so much more, and I also enjoy when movies have a lot going on and it's not just a straight comedy or a straight horror or drama, whatever.
Yeah, I think obviously I would echo that sentiment and just say, like, I think it's really good to keep that, like, open curiosity to watch different types of films. It's not really about, like, being in one camp or the other. Like, I only like action movies, or I only like serious adult dramas. It's like, hopefully, if you can, realize that a good movie is a good movie. And if you're open-minded and you're curious about storytelling, then there's no rule about a type of movie that necessarily, like a whole genre of films that aren't for you,
right,
necessarily. Yeah. So I think it's good to just try to again, keep that curiosity for art in general open as you get older. I think is something I would advocate for.
Yeah. Well, speaking of being open, this is going to be a weird segue, but it works. You have a lot of roles in this one, in Magic Hours. You have a lot of things. Were you did you always know you wanted to do these different jobs, like cinematographer, director, everything, editor, or did it just feel right with this being your first documentary?
Good question. If we had more money, I would have loved to probably just direct it.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of not enough funding to pay people well enough to invest in something that they have to work, dozens and dozens and dozens of hours on.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what it tallies up to, but it's maybe hundreds of hours.
Yeah.
So there's early conversations around, like, there are some key collaborators on this film that made it alongside with me or contributed in really meaningful ways. But yes, like, I did a lot myself. And if I, like, just one example is cinematography. So the cinematographer on this film is credited to myself and Jamie Stewart. And part of it was just like, when you do like 30 plus ish days of filming and I'm not able to offer Jamie as much money as I'd like, it kind of was like, he still came out so much more than I ever could have hoped he made. Like, this movie wouldn't have been possible without him. And he elevated the look of the movie so much. But, you know, there was like, if he did like 18 days, he has other things going on in his life. I don't have the budget to be like, put everything else on hold and just keep doing this and make no money this year. So he's got his own projects and his own work and stuff. And so days would come up where, you know, basically I would go and do it myself. And we just tried to be smart about what type of footage we'd get when it was the two of us and the type of footage that I'd get when he couldn't be there. Right. And lots of times it was like interviews we ran exclusively when both of us were there, because Jamie can make them look so nice. And it's just one of those things where I do not want to be paying attention to the camera and if it's shots in focus and sounding okay while I'm talking to a human being and asking them about their life. But then if I just need to go and film like, you know, atmospheric textures of Alberta and these towns or theater shots at 7 o'clock at night or a specific light, I can do that by myself, you know? Yeah. So that was like how we kind of divvy it up. So same thing with editing. Like I had Jamie as well jump in and help out there. And then Johanna Cibrian Rodriguez is another editor who just also did a lot of work on this film, helping refine some storylines and stuff. So there was definitely a lot of people helping out. But yeah, I don't know. Again, long-winded. Probably edit that down.
Well, I gotta say, I appreciate that you mentioned the like all the exterior shots, just nature shots, because I love that. Like, I'm a big fan of documentaries when we throw those in, those shots, and Alberta's so beautiful and there's so many great things, especially in the small towns. And then you get some with the mountains in the background. So there were so many great shots that you had as you're transitioning into an interview. Well done on those.
Thank you. Yeah, that was like a big focus for me. You know, as much as I was saying again, like I didn't want to spend a lot of time trying to like talk about the movie theaters, but I wanted to shoot them with as much reverence as I could for like how I feel about them. I wanted to make them look like pretty, and even if there's like a melancholy over the film, like I wanted to film Alberta as well as best as I could, whether that be the mountain ranges in the Crow's Nest Pass or prairies around Stettler or just a high river. Like, so yeah, I put a lot of heart and energy into trying to be there during weather changes, during certain times of day, you know, because a movie theater, I think, always looks prettiest right at like dusk when the sun, right after the sun sets, but you still have that magical like blue light on the sky. And then the lights come on. If they have a nice little old marquee, I'm like, there's nothing prettier than a cute old movie theater at twilight, basically. Yeah.
Also, I just thought I was like, oh man, Albertan filmmakers have such a cheat where you could have filmed over a week and Americans could watch this and think that you filmed it over a year because of the weather changes so drastically.
Yeah. It's very true for like being in this province. Is not only is the weather going to do crazy things, but also within a few hours of driving, you're going to also get incredibly different landscapes being right in the foothills of the mountains and the prairies. So that's also like makes you feel like you turned it into a road movie and traveled across like, you know, 10 states or something. Like within like 2 hours north, 2 hours south, you're just going to feel like you really, really traveled maybe even further than you did, even though it was a lot of driving in this movie. A lot of driving. A lot of time on the road. But yeah, that is like absolutely why so many iconic like Hollywood movies too have been shot here and gone on to win Oscars for cinematography, because obviously very talented people shot them, but it's just a beautiful place to have a camera if you know kind of where and when to point it.
Yeah, no, it is great. And people always don't realize how many things were actually filmed here. Go back, not like I'm talking further past like Revenant and Christopher Nolan movies. Like you can go back decades and you can find some amazing films. And like that was here.
Yeah, one of the like there's a movie called Days of Heaven from the 70s. I think is 78. And anyways, it's a movie by a director named Terrence Malick, who I love. And the whole thing is shot basically exclusively at golden hour in the prairies. And it's like constantly in certain film circles referenced as one of the most beautiful movies ever shot, and it's just nothing but basically like I think they were down by Lethbridge-esque, and they just would film like only like an hour a day when it was just very particular lighting. So that presented its own problems. But anyways, fun little tidbit that as a fan I had to put in there. Days of Heaven is like incredible.
Days of Heaven, everybody, you heard it, added to your playlist. All right. So we've heard for years, even just before COVID kind of happened, and COVID happened. And I was even just chatting with friends the other day about how cinema's dying, like the movie theater experience changing. Then last year we had Barbenheimer. Barbenheimer, yes. We had Barbenheimer. And then this year we've had...
You're going to say Glick? Glicked or...
Glicked? But we've also had Inside Out 2. We've had Deadpool and Wolverine. We've had Twisters. Like, people are going to the movies still. Do you think cinema's dead, or is it just it just needed a moment?
You know, it's a good question. I think I'm still really optimistic that people will always want to go and watch movies in theaters. And then there's a whole other conversation about the types of movies and the studios and the decisions they make about what type of movie is like, are people leaving the house for? But like, without getting trapped in that conversation, I do think it was also something that, you know, I would like to say, despite also making a movie about like the struggles of movie theaters, and me personally being like, God, I hope they continue to just like be around and be essential ways of seeing movies forever. Like, that's not to be anti-streaming, you know? It's like, that's obviously like I watch a million movies at home. Yes, I have a special place in my heart for watching movies in movie theaters. I think it can help you focus a little bit more than in your living room, but it's not exclusive to say you can't have a profound experience watching a movie in your living room. But I think that there's a lot of benefits that make an experience last a bit better in your memory when you make sure you're not on your phone or getting up to go and change the laundry when you're in a movie theater. So anyways, I think like movies are like Cineplex and big theater change in big cities definitely still have, I think, a lot more runway. And hopefully those will really always kind of stay. But in the short term, the ones that are really in trouble are the single screen movie theaters. Yeah. Because there's so many rules around in a small town. In order to get a movie like Avatar or a Disney movie, like sometimes they say you have to play it for 2 weeks straight or we won't give it to you. And they say, well, we don't have that audience. Like, the people who want to come see it will all be here within the first 3-4 days, and then our theater will just have one person in it, if not no one, like 2 weeks into it right now. So those rules are like really hurting it. And yeah, like smaller towns that can't pull from a big population center that only play one movie at a time. Even if you are in Calgary, like the Globe Cinema has been for sale for 4 years. If all it would take is a big company that just wants to bulldoze that building and put the money into changing it, like in that theater, would be gone in Calgary, not would be. So yeah, single screen movie theaters have it really hard. And I do think that if there's not like a system of turning more of them to a not-for-profit, you know, whether like so that the town can kind of say, we have a board, we still show movies here, maybe we can have concerts here, that's probably the best chance of keeping them in communities. But like right now, I think over the next 10 years, you're going to see, and I hate, you know, I don't want it to be this way, but I think you're going to see more and more of those close.
Yeah. And it sucks because I love going to the movies, and Globe and Plaza here in Calgary. Those are two that I go to, especially the next 2-3 months. You're going to see me at them a lot more because I am going to go see all those Oscars, Golden Globe nominated films.
Yeah.
And there's some, like, they release some of them in Cineplex, like, right away. For example, Queer just came out this weekend
at the Plaza, I believe,
but it was released at Cineplex as well.
Oh, was it?
But only at West Hills.
Well, you know, the thing is Cineplex Eau Claire used to be the go-to for those types of movies. Like, and I was so sad when Eau Claire closed because I like absolutely loved that movie because it was the only Cineplex that would bring in your Oscar type movies with, you know, finger quotations. And every time I'd go see one,
usually it was pretty quiet. And then I'd get to walk through that dead mall, and it was like a very special experience for me by myself. But
That was me all the time.
I saw on Instagram that you said you like at Cineplex alone did like 25 movie and theaters this year, which is 2 a month, which is really good. I mean, like you said, that doesn't even count Globe, Plaza,
And then all the
Stiff or
all,
Cuff.
all the movies I saw for Stiff and Cuff, which those were just Cineplex.
That's crazy. You're seeing more than I am.
Yeah.
I tried. I'd love to say like 20 is usually my goal. Like not counting film festivals. Like I'd at least once or twice a month I'd try to go. But you've got me beat there. You are practicing what you preach. Though you do love going to movie theaters.
I know. I was like, is this a lot? I was like, I don't think so. So I posted it, and then everybody's like saying, I was like, okay, so it was a lot.
Yeah,
And it was like,
especially in the throes of like February or March,
Yeah.
like the dead zone. But you're right. This time of year, there's so much more that you start to hear buzz about that's been in New York or something for like a few weeks, and then it's a smaller movie, and you'd say like, when is that going to come to Calgary? And then you just try to tackle it as many as you can.
yeah, and some of them come to Calgary. You have to be so quick. Another one but is playing at the Plaza, so I need to go see it because it was only at Chinook for like a week or two. Is A Real Pain with Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin.
Yeah.
And getting great reviews, and it looks amazing. I'm super stoked about it, but it missed out. So now I'm like, but and again, goes back to how long that they can screen it for. Because I'm like, all right, I need to go see it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, most of my events start at 7:00, which is when most of the Globe and Plaza and Wada theaters showing time.
Yeah. It's tricky, and also the theatrical window, of course, has shrunk so much where it's like, I remember I actually didn't see Twisters this year, though I've heard great things, and it was the summer of Glenn Powell, as many were saying that, like, I remember people going, it was making pretty good money, especially in the US and like domestic box office. And anyways, it popped up on, available for purchase at home, like so quick. And people are like, people are still coming out in droves and like buying movie tickets and making you more money. Like, why is it going on video on demand or streaming so soon? It wasn't free like immediately, but like it was like 2 or 3 weeks. I think I might be wrong. And it's just such a small window.
It's now free on Prime. Like as long as I'm there.
Yeah. So it's so crazy. Right? It's just business has changed.
Red One, the new Christmas one, is now just came out on Prime.
Oh, no way.
It was released a month ago in theaters.
It's free on Prime right now?
Free on Prime because it was a Prime movie.
Right.
And I was like, I love a Christmas movie, but I was like, this looks like trash. I was like, oh, I kind of want to see it though because it's like a Christmas movie, and I'm like, oh, and then I saw an ad was like December 12th on Prime. I was like, oh, well, then never mind. I'm going to wait for that.
Yeah.
And I think Disney actually has been really good. And I think that's why they've been making so much more money at the box office is that it's going to Disney Plus eventually, but they're now keeping it a total secret. For that first little bit, it was like 3-4 months. Now it's going longer because they don't want to tell you because they want you to go to box office and make more money.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just think like there are certain movies that have really positive word of mouth, so maybe they don't do some crazy number opening weekend, but they really hold well because people are going out and seeing them, and then that momentum can be killed a little bit with it going. Like, again, I know people will watch it at home, but there's something about like something staying in the discourse that I think helps a little bit when it's kind of prolonged to its full potential and seen in a movie theater. Yeah. This is just my opinion, but even with like the model of like an HBO show that's like released episodes once a week over the course of a season versus like a Netflix dump model. And I know they've modified it over the years to like maybe you get the first 3 episodes of a new Stranger Things episode or something. But I just think sometimes when you like just dump a season and everyone binges it, it's absolutely like dominates like the pop culture lexicon for a weekend, and then it's just like a flash and like I just feel like the staying power is reduced versus a show that's like over the course of 3 months every Sunday you watch and you're just like, I just feel like it has such a hold, not just for those 3 months but like beyond that. Like, so
because I remember one of my favorite jokes, I love the show Superstore was a great show, and there was and for those who don't know, it takes place at like basically a Walmart in the States there. And the first 2 episodes back of the 6th season, the final season, was it started off with them having a meeting, realizing that some things are shutting down because of COVID. And then it takes place, the 2-part episode takes place every like 10 minutes is in the next month of the 6 months leading, or like after COVID, and what's it like.
Right.
And it's like June, and one of the guys had COVID at the beginning, so he's like, goes to talk to his coworkers about Tiger King, and they're like, oh no, that was like beginning of COVID, and we're actually all kind of embarrassed that we did talk about it so much and obsessed. But that's how
That's a great example.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that was everything, and then now it was like, what, Tiger King?
Yeah.
But I'm intrigued to see what Netflix will do with this final season of Stranger Things, because that is the thing. We have moved back to weekly releases,
Yeah.
and it gets people excited again.
Absolutely. I think they during those early years, a few years ago, it was like, oh my God, and the whole season drops at the same time. And then now you just see more and more shows where it's like, you'll be watching something and then you're like, what?
Yeah.
It's not out till next week, and you're on Netflix and you're like surprised, But anyways.
The Only Murders in the Building on Disney Plus. Steve Martin Short, and Selena Gomez is such a great, clever show, and it's a murder mystery. And the fact that I have to wait every single week, but I'm like, I'm not going to wait till it's all out to watch it, because I want to. I need to know.
Don't get me wrong. In the moment, you're like, "Are you kidding me? I want nothing more than to go back to back, maybe 3 episodes in a row." Like, I would do it, but like, I think it's one of those examples of like it is smarter to make you wait.
Yeah.
If you can. Yeah.
Okay, so you've done this documentary now. Do you have more ideas? Like, did things come to you, or are you going back to narrative? Like, where are you at right now?
Yeah, good question. I am working on a narrative short film right now. I've kind of been making short films throughout my 20s, and who knows? I'm really hoping to make a feature film in the next few years. So I'm kind of telling myself maybe this will be the last short I make, but I don't know. But anyways, yes, I'm going to be going to camera for a short film called "I Was Supposed to Be Happy by Now." In the spring of next year, so a few months from now. And that was something that I actually was pitching for funding before Magic Hours happened. So I was hoping to make that during my first year off after quitting my job, to make more time for like personal projects.
Yeah.
And then Magic Hours happened, and I thought I could do both at the same time. And then I just am not good at that. I get completely caught up in the one thing because I'm so scared of it being terrible. So I'm like all in on this one to just try to do my very best to make it all right, at least, And so then finishing up Magic Hours, I kind of turned my attention back to this, and gonna get that gone and off my plate. And well, that's a bad way of putting it. I'm very excited to engage in the creative process and bringing that to life, and we'll see what happens with it. But yeah, I think like I was saying, the experience of doing Magic Hours and doing a documentary was really transformative for me. I just kind of started to rethink everything. I was like, maybe docs are my calling. Maybe I just love the experience, not because necessarily I thought I knocked it out of the park or something, but because of how it made me feel making it.
Right.
It was like a creative experience that I just absolutely loved. And so I think I'm just been in the process of just trying to, get through this narrative short and focus on that. And then I really would like to think about another doc and just try to get, a nice budget bump and make a feature, basically. Because Magic Hours is 45 minutes. So it's basically a television broadcast documentary. It fits into an hour if it was on TV with commercial breaks. So 44 minutes, I think, exactly on CBC Gem. So because it was purpose-built for that, it is a little bit of a odd length when it comes to like film festivals, because it's not a short film where they usually want something under 20. And if they want a feature film, the rules sometimes say 45 minutes and up, but it typically, from a programming perspective, when you're trying to have a beautiful flow to your day, movies are typically 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's kind of in this no man's land as far as that, and that's fine. It was always meant to just be, what it is for CBC Gem and broadcast on CBC television. But I would love the next doc to definitely be a true feature of, 80, 90 minutes or longer, depending on what's deemed necessary when it eventually gets made. But
Yeah.
I don't really know what it. I don't have an idea to tell you about right now. I don't know.
But isn't that the fun thing about documentaries too? More so than narrative, where you kind of have the script and story, but you have an idea for the documentary, and then all of a sudden you're making it, and you're like, "This is 20 minutes long," and then all of a sudden you're like, "Wow, this is gonna be like 2 hours long." Like,
I love those stories of certain documentaries where they started out saying we're going to make a documentary about this, and then they talk to somebody, and then they go, "What?" And then they follow that story, and then it just takes them to a place you never, ever could have expected.
chimp change. What was that? What was that? The one, the HBO doc that came out this year, Chimp Change or something like that? You see it?
No.
That's one that the documentary didn't know where it was going to go, and it went, whew.
Yeah, because nothing, again, can, help. But those types of things, like, do happen more often than you'd think. Like, once you start interviewing people or just, like, pointing a camera at things, suddenly things come alive, and you kind of just realize there are, stories everywhere. Yeah. So that is a good thing I think I'm trying to tell myself, instead of the perfect pitch, or the perfect idea, is just find something you like and then just start, Of course, having the perfect idea on paper helps with the funding part.
Yeah.
But just knowing, like, as soon as you start engaging with the act of creating it, things are going to pop up, and you will find a good, like, hopefully a movie in there.
Yeah.
If you're worried, like, it's not going to go anywhere, like, I feel like it always will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a story. You just gotta stick with it, and
Yeah, and there's so many things in this doc, because it had to be exactly 44 minutes, that, like, I couldn't put in. But there were certain, like, people who really made me laugh, and, like, I tried to make this documentary, like, have at least some moments of levity, along with, certainly aspects of it that are sad or kind of melancholic. But there were certain characters who just made me laugh every time I talked to them, and I just wish I could have put more of that in there, or, like, just said, "Can I come back and just make a movie about you?" So, yeah, like, even in this little project, those sorts of things popped up. Yeah.
How scared were you when you quit your job to do this?
Yeah. I mean, I was scared about going back into freelance, and basically there's no you lose the structure. You're self-employed, which is, I don't pay my rent from directing films.
Yeah.
I'm a freelancer in the film industry here in Calgary, so sometimes I get paid to edit commercials, corporate videos, social content. Sometimes I'm a cam op on set. Sometimes I'm hauling light stands and I'm gripping. So I just kind of do all that, and then try with the more, like, having more flexibility in my free time is what I can make something like Magic Hours with, which is the stuff I have to do if I ultimately want to live the dream. Yeah. So that was the reason behind it, because I knew I didn't quite have the capacity to be full-time at a production company, and then also on the side be directing a documentary. But I was really scared, and then like, now with being 2 years since I quit, it's still scary. And there's good things and bad things about both, and people in the film industry always talk about this, whether it's joining the union or joining full-time at a production company or staying in freelance. It's scary, but then also really rewarding to have control of your own schedule sometimes. And I'm sure you know a little bit about this with what you do, probably a lot more than me. So scary, but, like, ultimately I felt like I was making, like, for sure the right decision. So that helps ease your mind when you feel in your soul that you're doing something that's, like, for hopefully your higher purpose, your calling of what you want to do in life. So that makes you second guess it less. But yeah, especially I think after the rush of leaving,
Quitting your job is cool, but then, like, 4 months in, you're like, oh no. All right, okay, how's it going? Check-in time.
Yeah.
The first, like, week off, you're like, all right, let's go.
So for anybody who's listening and you're creative and you're like, it's it's a big leap, but if you're truly passionate about it and you think you can do it, you have to, because I've gotten too distracted in previous jobs because of it, and I was like, this is not what I want to do, and I'm getting burnt out from something that's not my joy, and yeah.
Yeah, it's tough, right? That kind of friction that you feel when you feel like you can't make time for something that makes you tick or makes you fill up with like life. That kind of eats away at you too. So it's tough, but it's also tough out here in 2024, you know?
Yeah.
So hey, we're doing our best.
Yeah, and I mean, I do have to mention before we wrap up and everything, I do have to mention you're a part of the Big Titty Golf Girls. For those of you who follow me on social media, you've seen their name pop up in those winner circles quite frequently. I believe you guys are my number one winners, of course, across all my events for 2024.
Wow.
Yeah.
That means a lot to me. I was so glad you brought this up. I could have just talked about trivia for the entire time because I absolutely love Tuesday trivia at Highline. And, it's just a highlight of our week. But I will say, I met a mutual friend of ours, Stephanie, on a film set recently, and she had a Trivia Daddy sticker on her water bottle. So I was like, you go to Trivia Daddy events, like, yada, yada. And she's like a super fan. She's like, I have 50 stickers or whatever. And I was like, I go to trivia every Tuesday at Highline. She's like, you part of the Big Titty Goth Girls? And that, I guess I got one of those moments about trivia before I did for anything I ever accomplished in the film world. So, that's okay by me. But our team is, we're very proud of our recent success. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, you guys worked for it. You found the perfect team, and you guys have been crushing it. So, yeah.
I got to give a shout out to the original members like Kennedy, Shelby, and Mishu, who had been grinding a lot longer before they came out and recruited me and my partner Tyra. And this recognition of a successful year, I think, is a testament to their multi-year grind.
Yes. Yes, they worked it and they got it. And that's, I hear from teams all the time that they'll be like, we're bringing new friends in tonight to see how this works. I love the people audition people.
Yeah. We have a sub on our team because we lost like a full-time member, Sam, who moved out to Toronto a few months ago. So now we kind of always have this floating sixth spot.
Yeah.
And our friend Paige has been filling it recently. But when we first brought her for a sub, she loved it so much. She's like, when we were full, she's like, well, I'm still coming.
Yeah.
And then we'd see a revolving door of people every week for her because she wasn't thrilled with her results. I'd be sending her the Instagram story of us on the podium, at least in the top 3, and I'd see her, way down there.
The Bilbo banging bitches.
So now she's trying to disassociate herself from that name and stuff like that. We're not going to let that happen.
Yeah. That's, you got to stick with it. I know. I tell people all the time, stick with your team name.
Yeah.
As we start to wrap up here, though, I do want to ask you, I ask all my guests, what's awesome? Tell me something awesome.
Well, I was going to maybe say trivia, but we were just talking about that. And then, we did talk about movies the whole time, but hey, why not? I wanted to shout out to movies, I guess, that I saw this year that I don't think a ton of people have seen and I personally loved. And one of them was at the Calgary Underground Film Festival. It was called I Saw the TV Glow, and I don't really want to spoil it or set anything up, but I just thought that was an incredible movie. It's one of my 2 favorite movies of the year, along with a movie I saw on an airplane going to Europe earlier this year, and it was called Perfect Days. So those 2 movies I absolutely adored and can't stop thinking about. And so those are awesome. But then in the middle of saying that, I also actually would like to say Cuff and SIF as film festivals are probably even a better choice to say what's awesome, because lots of times when you hear people start talking about like cinema going and the magic of movie theater, some people go, well, I saw this in theaters and it was awful, like if you go and see a movie at a film festival, I think it's going to happen, or it's the closest you'll get to encapsulating this like magical experience of communal movie going.
Yeah.
Like the most memorable and amazing theatrical experiences I've ever had have always been at Cuff or SIFF or a film festival elsewhere in the world if I've had the opportunity to go, because the audience is usually like packed, but it's like full of movie lovers. So it's like exactly as quiet as you want it to be when it's supposed to be, but the buzz and energy is still like totally identifiable and you can pick up on it, and it's amazing. And SIFF and Cuff are just like really amazing things in Calgary, and just like it's the perfect time too to take a chance on a movie.
Yes.
That you like, oh, I don't know if I like that, or I only go see these types of like big movies that, you know, get marketed like crazy for months and make hundreds of millions of dollars, but like the perfect time to go and see something you don't know much about, or you're worried might be a little too slow or a little too weird or something. SIFF and Cuff is the perfect time to go and see a movie like that.
100% agree with you. They're so awesome. I love them. I had such a blast at SIFF this year. There were so many great films, and just also some of the like times I go to the theater and there'd be so many people there during the middle of the weekday, because like I can go to see those ones, not everybody else can.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic, and like a wide range of ages too. Like there were some people that was like, "You're coming to see this film?" Like,
Yeah.
Okay.
That's also such a cool feeling, right? When you see like a bunch of people outside the targeted audience there, you know,
Yeah.
whether it be age or whatever, like you're like, okay, we got the teenagers and the seniors today. We'll see how this lands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good, but great.
Yeah.
Well, Levi, I thank you so much for being here today and chatting with me.
Yeah.
I loved it so much. Magic Hours, CBC Gem. CBC Gem is a free app. You don't necessarily need a subscription for. You can sign up so it can save your things, but
Yeah, you do have to sign up and make an account, but it's free to do so. And then you can watch a bunch of movies, TV shows, docs. So, of course, that's where Magic Hours can be found. And thank you for having me on today.
yeah, no, it was blessed. Also, with CBC Gem, for those of you who love Schitt's Creek, you can watch Schitt's Creek. You can stream that.
Right.
All these CBC shows and movies, and there's so much on there. And again, you just have to sign up. It's free. You don't have to pay anything.
Yeah.
But check out Magic Hours. 10 out of 10 recommend it. It's so good. Thank you, Levi, for being here. Very much appreciated.
Thank you, Craig.
And thank you all for passing time with me. Make sure to follow me on social media, Passing Time with Craig, PTW Craig, for all the fun ways to pass the time. Otherwise, we'll chat soon. Bye.